An active weather pattern is going to be coming to the United States over the next week, and this is going to bring the return of some severe weather to areas like the Great Plains and the Midwest. And on the flip side of things, we'll be watching for a potential for a tropical storm to develop just off the coast of North and South Carolina, and this could also bring the potential for maybe a little bit of severe weather, but more than anything, beneficial rainfall to many areas in the Mid-Atlantic and as well as the Ohio Valley. So in today's forecast, we're going to break down exactly what you need to know about the weather across the United States over the next 7 days, and we will begin with what's happening across the country this morning, which overall not looking too shabby out there for this suspicious storm Sunday. We do have a little bit of an area of convection that's been boiling just off the coast of South and North Carolina. This is where we're going to be watching for some tropical development over the next couple of days. Even if this doesn't develop into something tropical, we are at least going to see a lot of rain across areas like North and South Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, and perhaps even back through Ohio as we go into the early to mid portions of the week, and we'll be talking more about that here in just a minute. Back over in the northern plains, we've had some showers and thunderstorms over the last few days, but overall nothing too concerning. Midwest and Ohio Valley remain very quiet right now. Also, we did have a little tropical storm that did go up here in the Gulf of California. This overall did move into Mexico. It's kind of died out. There is a little bit of moisture still remaining that went through South Texas, but overall, aside from that, things are very quiet at this time across the entire country. Over the next 7 days, the weather is going to get really interesting because we're going to be dealing with the potential for several different storms that are going to be entering the United States, either from the East Coast or the West Coast, not really anywhere else. So we're going to talk more about the weather pattern that's going to be impacting the country, looking at the jet stream. As we go into Monday into Tuesday, we are going to have a trough that comes over the California, Nevada area from the West Coast. This is going to be our first of several storms that are going to be moving across the western tier of the country throughout the week, and these storms are going to bring the potential for some severe weather. So one of the days we'll be watching for is Tuesday. We're gonna have a negatively tilted trough. Overall, it does not look like this is gonna be a big tornado maker, but I do think hail and wind will definitely be possibilities across parts of the northern and central plains as we go into Tuesday, and we also could see that leak a little bit into Wednesday. But look at this as we go into Thursday. We're gonna have another large storm try to develop back over in the southwestern United States, and this one's gonna dip a bit further down to the south, and this could actually allow for a larger cool down for areas in the southwest United States and as well as back through the central and northern plains as we go into next weekend. Notice how this trough moves across the central plains instead of going through Canada. This one could be a little bit more of a troublemaker when it comes to showers, thunderstorms, and severe weather for areas like the Midwest and then back through the central plains. And then once we go into early the following week, the European model indicates a third storm going over the Rocky Mountains, and this one could also bring some, share of severe weather to some extent, maybe in the Midwest or back through the central plains. Now, granted, this is over 7 days out, so things definitely could change, but it is a weather pattern that does appear as if it's going to be very active as we go into the last couple of weeks here of September. We are also going to be talking about that tropical system here in just a second, but I do want to go ahead and flip over to the instability because this is going to be one of the key ingredients this week when it comes to severe weather. Basically gives us an indication of how unstable the atmosphere is here, and notice as we go into Tuesday, we are going to have a lot of instability, especially back up in the North and South Dakota region, and that's where I think our threat for severe weather will reside on Tuesday. And we also could see maybe a few isolated severe storms back in Nebraska and perhaps Colorado and Kansas. Once we go into Wednesday and Thursday, the severe weather risk really is going to be far to the north. I mean, this trough is literally going to be way up here, back up near Canada, and that's going to really bring any severe weather potential on Wednesday to the northern plains. By Thursday into Friday, we are going to see a next trough move in, and this is what we're looking at by Thursday evening. Again, more instability here across like Nebraska and Kansas. Unknown right now if there will be severe weather on that day, but we could see severe weather initiate on Friday, maybe in the central plains, and then back through parts of Wisconsin and Iowa. And then after that, we might see another round of severe weather by the late weekend and early the following week, but that does remain a little bit more uncertain at this time. So now let's jump into the future radar and give you an idea of where the severe weather setup will be, where we could see severe weather. In addition to that, talking a little bit more about this area of development just off the coast of North and South Carolina that could become a tropical storm over the next couple of days. Beginning with Monday, overall, we're going to be looking at really just an active weather pattern like it has been for a while in the southeast, that little low pressure system attempting to develop into something tropical, maybe a couple of storms back up in the northern plains, but overall the rest of the country very dry for Monday. Once we go into Tuesday, that system will start to move very slowly to the north, and this might remind you a little bit of Debbie. It basically is not moving really anywhere, so this is going to be a very slow moving system both Monday and Tuesday, meaning that any rain that does fall that could actually accumulate pretty quickly and lead to some localized flooding in Virginia Virginia or even North Carolina both Monday and Tuesday. We'll eventually start to watch back over in the northern and central plains for that trough to move in, and that could bring some severe weather as we go into Tuesday evening, anywhere from really the Texas Panhandle all the way back up into Wyoming and as well as back into Montana and as well as Canada. It's going to be a pretty long area, but overall the risk is still relatively low for Tuesday. Once we go into Wednesday, we'll be watching for that trough to move inland. Notice how this really just kind of fizzles out as it moves inland as we go into Wednesday. There will be rain that does reach areas like Ohio, but the problem is going to be it's not going to go very far inland, and with it being a tropical system and going over land, it's just going to die out very quickly. Kind of reminds you a little bit of what we just saw with Francine. It only lasted over land for a couple of days. This one's even going to be shorter lived because the intensity is not going to be nearly there as compared to Francine, but there will be some showers and maybe some storms as we go into Wednesday across areas from Ohio back through New York and southern New England. Once we go into Thursday, that might be our next shot for some severe weather from Canada back into Minnesota. Again, I don't see this being a big tornado day right now. I think more than anything, wind and hail look to be the primary concerns with any severe weather setup this week. Once we go into Friday, we'll be watching for maybe a few showers and thunderstorms to reinitiate in the central plains with that next storm. Once we go into Saturday into Sunday, the next trough looks a little bit more impressive when it comes to showers and thunderstorms. But again, the question really remains, how intense will this severe weather be, and are we talking about some sort of outbreak? Well, at this point, I don't think so, but we are still going to have to watch this closely in case that does change. And then once we go into early the following week, the European model does indicate maybe some snow in the higher elevations in the northwest back through Wyoming and into the Rocky Mountains, with maybe another shot for severe weather to some extent. But again, that really remains unknown at this time, exactly how intense we'll see severe weather, where it'll be, and all that sort of stuff. Over the next several days, there will be a lot of rain, and there will also be a little bit of rain depending on where you are in the country. You might not even see anything. This is what we're looking at in terms of rainfall accumulation through Saturday, so next weekend. Notice how a lot of rain is expected across the East Coast. A lot of those red and purple areas representing anywhere from 1 to 3 inches of rain. Yellow shaded areas from 3 to 5 inches. We also could see some localized areas pick up as much as 7 to 8 inches of rain out of this tropical disturbance that's attempting to develop. Back over in the central and northern plains, it looks like it's going to stay very active there as well. Many areas picking up anywhere from 1/10 of an inch of rain all the way up closer to 3 to 4 inches of rain, depending on how many showers and storms you see. Midwest is going to be a big goose egg, it looks like, at this point. Not really much if you're in Illinois or Indiana or Michigan. Very dry weather, so if you have any outdoor plans, looks fantastic overall. Texas and Oklahoma in the same boat as well. Going to be very dry in those areas and as well as in the southwest. The temperatures over the next week or so are going to remain mostly above average. If you're in the west coast or anywhere west of the Rocky Mountains, we are going to see a nice little cool down here as we go into early next week, and this is going to really stay there all the way through the week. And then eventually as we go into next weekend, we could get some sort of large cold air mass to develop on the backside of our third trough that develops, and that one might bring, again, maybe a big cold blast to areas like the northern and central plains, allowing for the potential for snow in the higher elevations of the Rocky Mountains, anywhere in that mountainous range. Temperatures over the next few days, well, pretty typical for this time of the year, maybe slightly above average, 80s and 90s across the entire Great Plains, Midwest back up into the 80s. It's going to be definitely above average there, with very dry weather expected even by Wednesday. Many areas still in the 80s and even 90s. We could be back close to 100 in Texas again here for mid-September. By next weekend, it looks like things will cool down just a little bit. Most areas back into the 70s and 60s in the Midwest. Same thing with the central and northern plains as well. Climate Prediction Center for next week and as well as this upcoming weekend agrees with this forecast, with above average temperatures across the Midwest, Ohio Valley, and back through the Great Plains. Along and just west of the Rocky Mountains are expected to be below average for temperatures, and precipitation above average for the Great Plains and then below average in the Northeast and as well as in the West Coast of the United States. The tropics are not super active right now, but we do have two things that we're watching for right now. One, medium chance of development just off the coast of North and South Carolina, and we've already talked about that, more details earlier in the forecast. I would say that we might get an area of development down here in the Caribbean Sea at some point. We might see something develop here next week or by next weekend. Something to keep a close eye on right now. If something does develop, it'd more than likely go north towards like Florida. Not super concerned right now, but just something to watch for. If you're anywhere in Florida, just be weather aware as we go into maybe next weekend or early the following week. And then also we have Tropical Storm Gordon back over in the Atlantic Ocean. This is going to become a tropical depression here pretty soon, but what I have to ask is, where is the lamb sauce? Like, seriously, this is now the second day in a row here of this being a tropical storm. As it continues to move west, again, it's expected to weaken a lot. We have a lot of wind shear in the area, which is literally killing off this storm entirely from actually being anything more than what it is right now. As it moves to the west, though, it's expected to move north north as we go into midweek, and then after that, it could re-intensify to a tropical storm or even a hurricane as it moves to the north and more than likely out to sea. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to hit the like button down below and subscribe if you've not already.